Alright, welcome to the channel, and today we'll be talking about the ZMF Atrium. And wow, just wow, this thing is fantastic. And this was sent out to me by ZMF as a demo unit and or review model, what have you. I like to think of my channel more of as a experience type of thing, like me talking about my experiences. But they sent this out. It even says right here that this is a review model, which is pretty cool. I like that little tidbit. They aren't asking me to say or do anything other than my honest opinion regarding these. And I mean, I'm gonna wear my bias on my sleeve and or shirt, I guess, in the sense that their headphones tend to have, or they just get me, I guess. They fit my preferences for enjoying headphones. And yeah, and this one's no different. So the first thing I want to kind of discuss with these is go over the build and aesthetics, because that's something that I really think is important on overall experiencing something, right? As an experience of a thing. I want it to look good, feel good, sound good, all that stuff, but the overall encompassing like quality of it and everything like that factors in to my enjoyment and or experiencing said product, thing, what have you. I love how Zach puts together the wood metal aesthetic, right? Like the way that these look, especially with the look of the Atrium faceplate here, that's basically was inspired. I'm going to read off the webpage, which I'll link below, but it was inspired by a Gothic cathedral kind of aesthetic, and it's fantastic. The wood is a cherry wood. The grills and or faceplate grill and the rods are, I believe, aged copper, and they look fantastic. Love that look. I love copper. Copper is one of my favorite like looking metals. Love it. The hardware itself is black. It's the standard kind of fair deal. The leather up top. Comfort wise, these things are fantastic. And all ZMFs, even when they don't have the new top pad with that extra cushion, are just still fantastically comfortable. But this is next level of that. Like, it just adds that extra little bit of comfort that's just lovely. And it wasn't even needed in my opinion, but it's nice that it's there. The strap itself is fantastic, does a good job. The overall polish and finish of these, this is more like that matte wood look, and unlike my Verite Opens, which have that gloss, I still love this. I think it's fantastic, and especially with the cherry wood, which over time will actually start to age on its own and give its own kind of unique character with that aging. Gonna grow with you, which I love that. Like, I love that these will be uniquely, and that's something about ZMFs in general. Every ZMF is uniquely yours, which is, I love that. Like, that's in and of itself a really cool experience. And then as time goes by, they age with you and what have you, and that's lovely. Overall, with the cushions and what have you, the cushions are very supple, very nice, classic ZMF, and I feel like they've just nailed down the cushions, and they've been really kind of getting those dialed in, and they just, every time I get a new cushion from the ZMF earpad cushion, they just seem to be just that little bit of extra, a little bit more, like they're nailing down the process, they're nailing down and getting just, getting it right, and they're constantly improving and getting better and better with it. And this is no different. These are lovely. Love the cushions. They're fantastic. And this is the baseline cable, I believe. It's a little bit, can be a little bit hard to maneuver with, but it's not that bad, and it's nice and comfortable. I actually like this one with the kind of that periapt cable kind of feel to it, and they're nice. The paracord, it's kind of like a paracord feel, does the job, and it does it very well. ZMF makes pretty beautiful headphones, and part of that experience of owning a ZMF is that feel. Like the finish is lovely, they feel nice in the hand, they they do what I like. They look good, they feel nice, and they work. There's some things like the classic ZMF, it has, the swivel for the cup can go 100, completely spin all the way around, and which, can be problematic for some people if you're not paying attention to it. You can get your cables kind of wound up, and you just have to pay attention and undo them and, kind of unravel them a little bit. Not that huge of a deal to me, but maybe it's something somebody would care about. The classic moving up and down of the fit, it's solid and, ratchets in, and you just basically get in there. So that's nice. Movement of the cup itself is fairly good distance that it can move to kind of adjust to your head and kind of get that swivel going, which is nice. And I guess the new thing with these ones is, which kind of leads into the technology, but the cutouts are similar to the VO, but then it also has almost the icon or Artur, like larger cutouts, like long parts here and there. So that's kind of a new thing. That has to do with, I'm assuming, the new technology is doing with the dampening and with these drivers, which are biocellulose drivers. And these are Zach's re-envisioning of the biocellulose driver. Also, he's using a new dampening system, and I'll link below explaining it, because it's not my field of expertise in any way, shape, or form. But he is using a new dampening technology and the new biocellulose driver. So check the links out below to find out more about those and what that all means to you. Reading off the site, like one of the things he mentions on the site is the Atrium is tuned to the more linear version of the ZMF sound. Although we think that the term neutral is a subjective construct, we do acknowledge that the Atrium represents a new level of ZMF neutrality. That's actually very accurate from my experience as well, which we'll dive into the sound in here in a bit. But like, I wasn't ready for how neutral these were comparatively to the other ZMFs that I've heard, but it's lovely, and it still has that ZMF sound and magic, which I just fall in love with every time. That neutral, I find it to be, personally, the way I would describe it is like a neutral warm. Yeah, let's dive into the next part, which will be the sound. All right, so with the highs, like, initially I was a little worried with the highs, because they weren't sibilant or anything like that, but they definitely were just a little bit on the brighter side for my taste. And I'm not overly treble sensitive, but I do think I probably do lean a little bit towards the treble sensitive side of the house. But with these, after a few days of listening and burn-in, honestly, like, no issues at all. It was like this weird switch happened, and all of a sudden it was just like, and you can call it brain burn-in or what have you as well, but I think a combination of the two would probably be more accurate. And the magic started to happen. And these are airy, detailed. They're I want to say clean, but it's more of that neutral kind of sound. And the highs just have that sparkle. Like, there's a nice sparkle to them, and there's an airiness that's just lovely, just nice. Like, it just had this nice layering of detail without it being like overly pushed upon you, I guess. There was no piercing, there was no sibilance, it was just nice. Initially I was a little worried about them, but the highs they turned into this lovely thing, and then I really engage and love the highs with these, and the sparkle and then the splash of certain instruments and what have you is just fantastic. So let's dive into the next part, which will be the mids. This is where these really start to show their magic a little bit. And by a little bit, it may mean a lot. The mids are a force to be reckoned with these. They just seem to expand and go on forever. Like, the mids have this amazing tonal balance. There's amazing, there seems like you could just reach into them, like pull out all the different parts, and there's just, it's amazing how the mids sound on these. And I wouldn't say that they're like auteur lush sounding, but they have that same level of forwardness, and but they're just more neutral, and it feels like more detail. Like, there's a more engagement with them. The mids have this range that it just has me falling in love with how they're presented. And like, vocals are they're rich without being lush. The mids have a lovely presentation, and there's a lot of detail there. There's a lot of presentation and things that I'm able to engage with that I didn't realize were, that I was missing, I guess, to some level. And it's one of those things, like, I was listening to certain tracks where I was like, oh, I know this track really well, and I'm listening to it, and like, even like certain instruments that fall in that mid-range, it was just presented in such a way that I was kind of engaging and hearing things in just different ways, right? Like, or in a presentation that I wasn't used to, and it just had me engaging with that music that much more. And that's one of the things I love about this hobby, is finding those experiences, right? Like, finding things that allow me to engage in different ways with the music that I love. And so with these, that definitely was a thing that I fell in love with immediately. So one of the things with the mids that I really loved was anything acoustic, orchestral, jazz, blues. In fact, actually almost every track that I listen to across my genres that I listen to, which is pretty much everything, I found the experience just fantastic, and I loved the mids on these. The mids are just stupid good. But I would say for me, as a ZMF person that I love ZMFs, this is probably my new favorite mid-range headphone. And going into the low end, which was the next big shocker for me, was the bass was just dynamic, punchy, and just engaging, and it just elevated everything else. Like it was that nice blend. It's like adding a subwoofer to a nice set of, like my Keths, for instance. It was like brought everything together and made it just shine. And the lows were, like I said, punchy, clean, dynamic. There was this nice sub bass rumble to them. And there was a couple times where I thought that I had my subwoofer on for whatever reason, or my speakers were on. That happened a couple times, to be honest, where I was like, oh crap, do I have my speakers and my subwoofer on? And am I not listening to the headphones? And it wasn't the case. And I was like, wow, and that's really cool. That really had me engaging with it in my music, in my experience with these. Just fantastic. Loved those experiences. At the end of the day, what these really did was they just allowed for me to engage with my music, and I would be lost to it. That happened more and more and more, and that's always been a thing with ZMS for me, is I always found myself kind of getting lost in them, right? And getting lost in the moment, getting lost in the experience of listening and in my chain of music, and forgetting I'm even listening off a chain of music and just engaging with the music. And that's always awesome. And the way that the lows present to the mids, to the highs, I guess going into the overall sound signature kind of thing, but fantastic. The next part that was also fairly impressive was the way that these present with their stage and their imaging and their detail. I wouldn't say it's quite like HD 800, but it's on par with like the VO. But then it's also, to me, because of maybe the neutralness and or the airiness of these, it feels wider, it feels deeper. One of those things that's hard to describe until you actually experience it. It does have this nice presentation where I was engaging with it in ways that I honestly, probably this is replacing my HD 800 for that kind of listening to some level, right? I mean, HD 800 is always going to have a special place because it's the HD 800 and it's known for the crazy, stage and detail and what have you. But these are more enjoyable. Like, they're just flat out more enjoyable to listen to across more chains, audio chains, like your DACs and amps and what have you. The mid-range, to me, the way that I think that's where it's magic is a little bit, where that detail in the mid-range and just how it just feels so expansive and deep. Like, I feel like I can just reach out and touch wherever the instrument's coming from or the little parts are going, and even the same with the highs and whatnot. But it just fantastic. I can hear the things that I want to hear when I want to hear them, and at the same time I don't have to. Like, I can disengage it and just let it be there and sound fantastic. And that was the other part that I really dug about these when it came to the stage imaging and detail, was that everything had its place and you could easily pick it apart, like in the sense of like, oh, okay, it's there, okay, the imaging is fairly sharp. I mean, it's not planar imaging sharp, but it's, it's separated, it's nice, and you can easily pick it apart. But the way when it's all put together, it made me not think about it. It just seemed right, like it just presented well, and it made me engage with the music more so than with the headphones, if that makes sense. Like, I felt like I was listening to the music rather than the headphones, which that to me is what this is about. And I really enjoyed that about these. That would be my thoughts on stage imaging and detail, is that these have that ZMF magic, or that ZMF neutral is magic, man. Like, the way that they just present and makes me not think about listening to headphones. I'm listening to the music, and which is what I'm here for, right? Or I'm hoping and assuming we're all here for, is listening to our music and not necessarily our gear. And the gear is just there to basically transport us to the music, right? Or get us there. So back to the overall thought process on these is, personally, these just get me. Just like ZMF headphones in general, they just fit my preference, and these ones are no different. They have, I would say that these would be in lineup with the VO and the VC. And the VO and VC, if you don't know, those are my top two headphones, personally, for headphones. For their signature, their way they look, everything about them, they are my number ones for open and closed back headphones. And this one has now become like this, in that same realm. Like this, I don't know how to put it, because I would say it's right there with the VO and VC as far as performance. Kind of even goes a little bit further with that overall when you put all of that together, like all your highs, mids, lows, the stage, the imaging, the detail, the overall presentation of this when it presents music is just lovely. Like I get lost to it, and it's great. And I'm not the biggest fan of neutral stuff, and this I would say is not the most like proper neutral. It's like, I think Zach nailed it with ZMF neutral. It's a ZMF neutral, and it's fantastic. I love it. The dynamics, everything about it just gets. The fact that I can get lost to my music the way that I do when listening to this is enough for me to be thumbs up, love it, and it's great. And once again, bias aware, I love ZMF, and the preference for me is that the sound signatures that he creates fit my preferences. So I've yet to hear ZMF I haven't liked. Overall, this is definitely aligned with the VO VC, like I was saying, and where it fits in that lineup for me personally is it's going to be in my lineup, and it's going to be on par with the VOs for my #1 open back headphone. In fact, it might even surpass the VO to some level, depending on my mood. Like, I think that's where this kind of lines up with, is it's so engaging and such a fantastic listen. So with that, let's dive into a comparison. Chain I'll be using for my comparison real quick is the Hollow Spring 3 KTE Level 3, the Amston Sound Kinsey 2.0, and obviously the Atrium and the Verite Opens, and I will be utilizing Qobuz. And the track that I'm going to listen to is this track I found randomly. I think it was a Spotify recommendation. So the track is the artist is Wild Light, and the track name is Twirl Me. And there's a singer on there that actually I'm a big fan of, and this is like a folk Americana track. And the singer is Ayla Nerio. I'm butchering her name. She just has a great voice. I've always really liked her music, and her voice is fantastic. Alright, so let's grab the Verite Opens and give these ones a twirl. Wow. Wow. Okay, so comparing these two is tough. So these have more detail, and the airiness and that mid-range is, I think that's where that's coming from. Like the detail and imaging, because these are so like airy and sparkly with that highs the way they are and the way the mid-range is presented, it just has a very lovely sound, and it's very engaging in a different way, right? And the lows are where another departure is, where these are very punchy and dynamic and more clean sounding lows. The Verite Opens have more of a lush, rich, kind of that melt in your seat kind of sound signature, where these have more of a, I wouldn't call this like a lean forward listen signature, but more of like, actually they have that more, I'm going to sit neutrally but slightly back and just kind of relax and enjoy my music with these. The headphones and everything kind of more disappears, and I'm more listening to the music. The Verite Opens, I am listening with the headphones more, and I'm still transported there, and I still get that signature, and it's just more of that like relaxing, like warm, just lean back and relax, where this one has more of that, a little more energy, a little more sparkle, the detail in the mid-range, and the parts that you can pull apart and like get into, sitting in the same chair, but instead of like pulling the lever and going all the way back, you're just kind of maybe pulling a little bit, and you just kind of lean a little bit back, or it's like a little rocking chair, more action, right? It's more of that rocking chair, where at the same time you kind of lean forward when you little energy sections of the music kick in, and you can be like, oh, and it just grabs you. Even now, doing another comparison real quick, it's so crazy how these have just really truly grabbed me. Like, I'm really loving these. So with that being said, God, like, fantastic job, Zach, ZMF, and the ZMF family. Fantastic job. Love these. They'll be, hopefully out in the wild, maybe at some of the can jams coming up, what have you. Give these a listen, because there's something different, and there's something else, and they are pretty fantastic in my opinion. Real quick, I will have Zach and Bevan from ZMF on a live stream on the 19th, so feel free to check that out, or look out for that. It'll be around 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I think 6 p.m. Central Time. Yeah. Anyways, so keep an eye out for that. And yeah, wow, these things. Whew. Anyhow, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.